Hi everyone, I'm Cheryl and welcome to the Sewing Room channel, and this is your tip of the week. Recently I had a viewer who was having a difficult time determining front side, back side, right side, wrong side, pretty side, all of that was very confusing. So I'm going to show you some samples of fabric so you can see the difference in what it looks like. Now, right now, all of these fabrics are the right side. It's the prettiest side. That's what's facing up right now. When you look at the wrong side, it's much lighter, usually, much lighter. And that goes for all of these. Then you get to some of your lighter colors, and it can be a little more difficult. Now, this is still obvious to me that this is the prettiest side. That's called right side. This one here is even more difficult. It is so close, but there is just a little bit of a difference. It's real easy for something like this where the colors are really, really bright. Now, here the colors are pastel, but it's still much darker on this side. So when you buy a pattern to make something, it'll say right side, wrong side. What that means is the prettiest side is called right side. I often refer to it as front side. The not so pretty side is wrong side. I often call it back side. So you need to understand which side is what. So when you go to stitch pieces together, you don't want your seam to show on the outside. Let's say you're making a blouse. You don't want the seam to show on the outside out where everybody can see it. So that's why it's important to bring the prettiest sides of your fabrics together. Stitch on that side. Then when you're done with your project, all the seams are on the inside of your garment or project. Now, even some of your white fabrics have two sides to it. And the reason why this does is it does have a print on it. It has little stars, and you have to get really close and get in some good light to be able to tell. And I'll usually put my hand underneath and I'll go to the window where I can get natural lighting to see which is which. But they look so close, even if you made a mistake, I don't think anybody would notice. I also had someone ask me about overcast stitches. What are they? Here's what an overcast stitch is. And an overcast stitch binds the raw edges of your fabric. And so these are some of the ones on my machine. Now, I should have used a darker thread, but here on this one is a serger seam. In other words, there's a special machine, it's called a serger. And what it does is it cuts your fabric and binds the edges at the correct seam allowance that you need. So if you're making some clothing, typically a standard seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch. So one way of doing it is to go in 5/8 of an inch and do your straight line of stitching and then do an overcast stitch. Some do it another way. They go in 5/8 of an inch and do their overcast stitch and then trim the excess fabric off. And I did have a sample of a serged edge where you can see the thread. But this was done on my serger sewing machine. So when I make clothing, I prefer using a serger, but for probably 50 years, I used a regular sewing machine to make clothing, and they turned out just fine. This is a small drawstring tote bag, and this was one of my first tutorials I ever did on YouTube. And a viewer had a question on it. She asked, how can I make an existing tote bag I already have into a drawstring tote bag? And I answered her question kind of late in the evening, so I kind of said something backwards. So I thought, well, I'm going to put it into one of my tips so I can go over how you could put a casing on a tote bag you already have. One of the suggestions I gave her was to put a strip of fabric on the inside and create her casing. Well, after saying that and going to bed, I realized, oh, wait a minute, you can't do it that way because you need a hole on the sides. So what you would do is put a casing on the outside of your bag. And I'm using this ribbon as an example. And by the way, you could use ribbon, something that's washable. And so you would take each end of your ribbon and fold it over a couple of times and then stitch it down because you don't want this to unravel. Then you could pin it wherever you wanted it on your tote bag. You could pin it right up at the top or come down a little ways. And so then you would pin it down. Then what you would do is, I'm going to turn the bag right side out because this is real important. It's going to make it easier for you to stitch. So in here, you would have your ribbon, and then you would stitch on each edge of the ribbon, the top and bottom, but leave the sides open so that you can put your drawstring in. So I hope this is helpful to you if you're watching. Another viewer was trying to make this Japanese knot bag, and it's a really cute little bag. But there's one little tricky area that can be difficult to stitch around if you're not used to sewing. And she was having such a bad time, she wound up throwing the project away, and I hated to see her waste fabric. So what I'm going to do is show you how to stitch in small places on your sewing machine. Now, on most of your sewing machines, you will have some sort of a storage compartment around here, or you will have an extension table. Remove the table or any storage that you have. So when you need to stitch something like this, it's small, you can just slip it underneath because there's a place here. And then when you go to stitch, it just rolls around really easily. Whoops, I have it on reverse. And so you can just keep guiding it like this. Now there's another way you could do this same thing. I like having my pins on the inside. So I'm going to turn it this way. And I'm going to insert this underneath. And now you can lay it on top. So if you're not able to remove your extension table for whatever reason, you can lay it on top and then you can go ahead and stitch. And all you need to do is, whoops, you need to be careful your pins stay out of the way. That's the problem with all this. So you would pull the fabric forward, stitch a little bit, continue to pull the fabric forward up here and stitch some more. So let me show you one more tight space. This is something really small. It's a napkin ring holder size. So you're going to have to place it up on top because it's too small to go around the arm here. So place it inside. And this is where you have to stitch really slow. Okay? So you're going to stitch a little bit, pull that fabric forward, stitch a little bit. And that's how you stitch in tight spaces. Well, I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you learned something new. Practice on scrap fabric on some of these things I talked about, especially if you're new. Don't buy expensive fabric. Buy cheap fabric so that you can have things to practice on. go to that clearance table and buy just a small amount of fabric, not too much. You don't want to overspend on maybe some fabric you don't really like. Now, if you scroll down below your YouTube screen to the description section, and so when you see the word more, click on it, it will expand open. You will see a variety of links to some of my other tutorials. And by the way, don't forget to follow me on Instagram and make sure you check out my Facebook page. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing. If you like the Sewing Room channel, one of the best ways to show your support is to subscribe by clicking on that red subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to click on share to share this video with your friends. And make sure you click on the bell so you receive notifications for all my new videos. I'm Cheryl, this is Manny, and this is Scotty. See you next time.